We'll go ahead and get started though, call the meeting to order so we can get going. We are a little bit late, our tour went over a little bit longer than what we intended. Hopefully we don't smell too bad. So it was pretty warm, but it was pretty impressive too. So if you guys want to go ahead and get started, we actually have minutes to approve first. Is there anyone willing to?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? And now we'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Well, good evening. My name is Craig Dishman. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director here in Edmond, and we're excited to be here tonight. We appreciate you guys listening to us. We brought a few goodies for y'all. I guess we should have put candy or I guess maybe water. It sounds like you want water. I think there's a cooler over there. But we have a presentation tonight about 3 different facilities, and I think you have a sheet that lists several items that we've talked about in our long-range plan, but we're focusing on 3 for right now. And the first one is the clubhouse at Kickingbird Golf Course. And so I'm going to let Brian introduce himself and let him discuss that this time.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to come and present what is near and dear to my heart. And I know for many of you, Mr. Reeser and those who have been in Edmond for a long time, Kickingbird Golf Club has been here for quite a while. And love to have the opportunity to share with you what I think is going to be a key component in the future of our golf course and the success of our business operation. And so I will have you, if you don't mind, as I stand out of the way here, flip through the slides as I have your presentation. And I think everyone has a copy provided to you. I get asked a lot of times, what's the reason for a new clubhouse? Many of you that have been to Kickingbird, if anybody has visited, have seen that the current clubhouse is 44 years old. It has the same outside architecture and appearance as it did when it was first built. The infrastructure in our clubhouse, it is failing from time to time, and as with the age, we're trying to just kind of keep it up as we can. But with the cart barn in the clubhouse, we're finding some issues that are coming about, especially with energy efficiency, which we'll discuss later on in the presentation, which we think the new clubhouse would definitely be able to help us with. We're finding limited storage space. We do see a new clubhouse, the opportunities for new revenue growth. To enhance the customer amenities, I mean, one of the big things as manager at Kickingbird, I've been fortunate to be at Kickingbird for 17 years now. One of our big directives is the customer's experience. We're very unique in the city of Edmond that we do operate the golf course as a business, and we are expected to do so. I have my city leadership team here that I've been given directives. We really don't want to have to sustain the golf course. We'd like you to operate in a way that at least it breaks even or can make a slight profit for us. So we really need to make sure that we put a green fee structure in place and provide an experience to our customers that will keep them coming back. So those of you that are in the business aspect of things, very important to stay competitive. And one of the biggest things is to enhance our customer experience by increasing their amenities and making them nicer. And then, as I mentioned, to build in a better energy efficiency, which I'll speak of later. A little bit of history about the golf course. As I've mentioned, the golf course and the clubhouse opened in May of 1971. We were the city of Edmond's first golf course. All the other ones came in after us. I sometimes get the question, is it good that the city is in a competitive environment with private golf courses? And I have good relationships with a lot of the Fairfaxes and the Coffee Creek, and I look back at them and I say, with all due respect, you all came in to compete with us with real estate development, and if you remember back in the early 90s, in the late 90s, that was a big draw, was to build a golf course to help build real estate. And then when you max out your real estate, it's often sometimes difficult to survive at just a golf course only, and that's what we've tried to do at Kickingbird Golf Club all these years. We play more than 40,000 rounds of golf annually. That puts us in the higher echelon of the public municipal golf courses in the area. There are 2 public golf courses that play more than us. We have Lake Hefner at about 78,000 and Lincoln Park at 72,000, but they're 36-hole facilities. So on a per 18-hole basis, we're very competitive, not one of the busiest. We do host a number of corporate events and fundraising events annually, which is very important to our business structure. We'll host over 60 corporate events. Some of those you may be familiar with and maybe even have participated in. Turning Point Ministries, the Judge Allen E. Sinar Memorial, which is coming up next Friday. We've got St. Elizabeth Ann Seton School, Devon Energy, Edmond Rotary Club, the Edmond Exchange Club. So we're very involved in the community for their fundraising efforts as well. We are also the home course to Edmond Memorial High School, the Cimarron, Sequoia, and Central Middle Schools. Oklahoma Christian Academy Middle Schools. And as I was speaking to a few of you earlier, we're also the home course of the University of Central Oklahoma's professional golf management program. And that's kind of a mutual benefit. It's great. We've got 51 current students in that program right now, and I get to hire quite a few of them to do their summer internships for me. So when I lose an assistant golf professional like I did recently, these kids are able to step up and really learn the business of golf at Kicking Bird Golf Club. And then we do host a number of really prestigious amateur events. As I was speaking with some of you earlier, we just finished today the Oklahoma Golf Association's Junior Boys and Girls State Championship. Each year we are the home course the first week of June, so they've been out there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We just completed it before I came here. Austin Eckra was this year's champion, Edmond North student. But this attracts junior golfers from all over the state of Oklahoma. And it was just interesting. I was talking to Mark Felder, who runs the Oklahoma Golf Association. I said, how many of your field do you think were visitors? And he started calculating because I told him I had this meeting I was coming to after this. And he said about 60% of all of his participants stay here in Edmond, eat in Edmond, and those kind of things. And I know that's something that's important to you all in the city of Edmond because we survive on sales tax. And so, you know, we also host college events. We've hosted the University of Central Oklahoma's college events in the past. We are currently the home course of Southern Nazarene universities, and they're hosting anywhere between 15 and 17 NAIA and Division II schools each year. And then some prestigious amateur events, whether it's the Golf Channel AM Tour or other events that bring in adults from outside of the state as well. And then each year annually, last year was the first year we were able to produce over $2 million in revenue. And what that looks like for the city of Edmond is about $146,000 a year in sales tax from our revenue. Proposed location. As you can see, the current footprint of the golf course, we would like, if this were to be considered, to move the clubhouse a little bit more to the east. You'll see this is number 9 green. Right here, we'd have a great opportunity if we were to build the clubhouse in kind of a horseshoe fashion. I had to do rectangles just to show you, but to have a great view of the number 9 green. This is our practice putting green, number 18 right here, and have a square-on view of the number 1 fairway. If any of you have been up to Kicking Bird, I've got an aerial view here in a little bit that you'll see. We have very good views from on top of the hill, so we really want to take advantage of that. But we would hopefully be able to maybe even redo a little bit of the parking lot. We would need to bring that into some ADA compliant issues, and we would reposition that. I don't know how hard this would be. Back in 2007, we expanded the driving range tee. We put up lights because people are hitting the ball so far. We might even want to expand this range back a little bit. We'd have to look into the cost of that, but that's not part of what I'm putting before you tonight. That's just maybe future development. So that would be the proposed location. As I mentioned before, the architecture and appearance, this is what we look like from the front. Right here, there's our entrance, and this is the rear view. Both just looking into the 1970 architecture. The clubhouse has been through 3 renovations. 2 of them were expansions in 1983 and 1992. And then right before I came here in 1997, they just did a renovation inside. So basically the same type of look. Just a couple pictures of our failing infrastructure. I think some people saw this. This was actually after the latest rain event. These are our ceiling tiles falling down in our cart barn, and we came in with the lights falling off of the ceiling. Now, this isn't something we happen every day, but this is something that just recently happened, so I had to take a picture of that. And then, of course, ceiling, we can replace that. Those are things, these are minor cosmetic things with the tiles in the floors and stuff like that. But when it becomes a continual basis, it's more like what our golf advisory board looks at is what are we going to continue to do, or do we start looking at replacing? And so the faulty ceilings, the bad lighting, the grease trap system in our restaurant, window seals. Some of you have come out, and whether you're a golfer or not, take advantage of our restaurant and be able to eat there and take advantage of the great views. Even the great views sometimes with poor seals in the windows. We have hard views and some bad systems there. And then the flooring in the restaurant area at the very bottom with the heavy rain sometimes. With the seals and the cracked concrete flooring, we have some flooding issues that happen when we get the heavy rains like we have in May. So, inadequate storage space. I think everybody, whether you build a brand new building like Lincoln Park just did, or you have one like ours, I think we always run out of storage space. So if we were fortunate enough to be able to construct a new clubhouse, storage space is very important, but especially behind the scenes, as you can take a look at our kitchen view where we try to keep all of our bottled beverages, dishes, restaurant supplies Currently, we just have one area sharing all the refrigeration, the freezers, the dishwashing area, and the storage. The restaurant is right now not in compliance with a proper hand washing sink or a mop sink, and our electrical box location needs to be moved. And then this is just a typical area, one of our little closets where we try to hold all of our rental clubs, demo clubs, and our club repair area. That's our closet. So, I mean, basically, you would want a little bit more room for our storage behind the scenes. I think one of the things we get excited with, and I know many people that are in business, is the opportunity for revenue growth. And we feel a very important part of a potential new clubhouse would be an increased banquet room. Much larger size, the ability to host up to 200 people at a given event. How many people have been down to the new Lincoln Park Clubhouse or have seen it? I have a story about you in your grandson's graduation, wasn't it? Yeah. Very beautiful clubhouse. They have a new banquet room in there, about 3,000 square feet, can host up to 175 guests. We would look to try to build a banquet facility that would host up to 200, but the ability of that would also be able to be sectioned off. It's very important. We get a lot of requests for private business meetings, and those of you who've been to Kicking Bird, there is no such a thing. Ike Burris is on my golf advisory board, and we actually have our advisory board meetings in the ladies' lounge because we have no private area to have a business meeting. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But the banquet room would be critical for our revenue growth. As I mentioned earlier, 60 outside events, we'd be able to attract larger groups. And then once again, having that nice indoor seating. Right now, we can only host with our current restaurant 80 customers. Those of you that have been to our facility, we have an outdoor pavilion where we put our bigger tournaments. A lot of our tournaments are 100-plus players. We put them out in the pavilion, but any of those of you that have been on top of that hill with the wind, it's very hard to drop down those awnings and try to keep it anywhere safe. So it's very unusable sometimes due to winds, and that's why on my map previously, we would try to expand over to that area and just take that down. Next slide. Here's a couple of the pictures that I'm talking about. We are very blessed to be at a point that, and I double-checked this with Sarah Cobb, there's always been rumors, we are the highest point in Edmond on the southeast corner of our driving range, which is up by number 11 tee box. Well, currently where our clubhouse sits, right here, we're still really high, and any of you who drive up Bryant, you can see our clubhouse is way high on the hill. Those of you that have been out to watch fireworks in our facility, we're actually getting ready to do our 10th annual 4th on the hill from up on top of the hill by our pavilion, and you can see fireworks from all over the metropolitan area because we're sitting up so high. A big component of this would be able to take advantage of these excellent views and actually build a clubhouse with a second story with views that could overlook, as I mentioned earlier, number 18, square up to number 1 and over by number 9, and have our banquet facility and our restaurant up on that second floor and be able to host special events such as a graduation party like you did down at Lincoln Park. We would have that opportunity. When I first presented this at City Council, I will tell you that there was some questions brought out as to would you think about hiring an outside private contractor to run your restaurant business. The one advantage to that is as a municipality, the Able Commission would not grant us a liquor license. Well, if you're wanting to get into the wedding business or the banquet business with corporate outings, some of those people are going to want to have alcohol. We can get a small low point beverage license. We have beer out there, but we would not be able to serve any alcohol. And so we would look at the opportunity possibly to partner with the contractor or maybe even develop relationships with a private caterer, someone that's in this business that once again they would pay us a rental fee or a plate fee per se if we were going to utilize this top banquet room for wedding receptions, potential weddings. The only thing, and I'm not a wedding planner, being a municipal facility, it's a lot harder to close a golf course for a private wedding, but I could certainly see wedding receptions, corporate outings going on the top floor up there. And then one other thing that I would like to bring up is it would still be important to keep a small food and beverage operation on the main floor to service our golfers that are making the turn wanting to come in. So it would be definitely a two-level clubhouse. Increased golf shop revenue. With our new clubhouse, if anybody's been into the current Kicking Bird clubhouse, we have a very large pro shop footprint. People might say, well, that's great, you can stock more stuff. Well, I truly feel as manager here, we could lessen our footprint, more theme lighting, themed areas, and with a less footprint even create more revenue with just the increased foot traffic from those that see Kickingbird Golf Club as now as a destination place. And with that new floor plan, as you can see, this is Lincoln Park. If you walk into their entrance, this is what you would see. And the one thing I really like that I could see at Kickingbird is this is your informational area. That's a large big screen TV, and it tells you everything you want to know about Lincoln Park, and it has some lounge areas right down here. But this actually wraps up and back around and goes out onto that porch, which I believe, Steve, that's where Brad rented that upstairs area. Is that correct?
It was raining 4 inches a day, an hour, and we didn't get outside.
So you didn't get outside, but you were upstairs.
Yes.
And they rent that out for special events. And so I really see that we would be able to attract a Brad Reeser that would maybe want to host something out there. And there's plenty of other areas I know in the city of Edmond to do that, but there's something about the golf course views in the area that would allow us to do that. So enhanced customer amenities, this is what I was talking about earlier. We have a lot of current customers. This is our current locker room right here. They look like high school lockers. They have the combos. Can't fit a lot of big golf bags in those. This is at Rose Creek, a little bit more of a wooden locker, and we would certainly want to attract the weekly golf, the professional guy that might want to come in for a meeting, play 18 holes, take a shower before he goes home, and he's ready to go. So we would look not only at a better locker room type system, and we didn't have to have a ton of lockers, but better locker rooms and certainly better shower facilities for both our men's and our ladies. And then once again, a larger lounge and changing area. Increased energy efficiency, once again being built in 1971 in such a large floor plan, we would certainly look in and explore the option of geothermal. We've already installed some LED lighting throughout the clubhouse. That would absolutely be utilizing the new one, better insulation in the ceilings, energy efficient windows. Talking with Michelle, taking advantage of the demand and energy efficiency program with the discounts that are offered by upgrading with those new things. And then this is just a real quick snapshot based on the information that I got from Michelle. Our current yearly consumption is 475,000 kilowatt hours. And with the new clubhouse with the exact same footprint, we would be looking at 270,000 kilowatt hours, saving us $28,000 a year just in energy savings on that. And then the financial implication. I think many of you have had a list of projects put before you. And the clubhouse is on there for what I feel is a conservative budget of $6 million. It's amazing to see what the private sector may be able to build versus a municipality. But Rose Creek was able to build their new clubhouse for $2.2 million. And don't run out of here saying this was fact, but from the figures that I've gotten from Steve Carson, I know I took Larry on a tour of Lincoln Park, $9.2 million for that new clubhouse down there. So I talked to the guys that just got through with it down at Lincoln Park, and they said, you know, they were between $250 and $275 a square foot. And if we were to expand a little bit, I didn't really get into too much about our park barn, but we would look to maybe put that underneath the building. At $300 a square foot, I think that's pretty conservative. And then as I was speaking with a few of you earlier, return on investment, what do you look at? I spoke to the general manager over at Oak Tree Country Club, and they just put a lot of money into that new Oak Tree Country Club clubhouse. What does Club Corps expect? 20% return on investment for an investment such as that. They spent about $2.2 million. Now, his numbers are pretty good, and they doubled their seating capacity at Oak Tree Country Club and thus doubled their restaurant business, he said so far, which is great. Don't know if we can expect that, but I use conservative percentages once again with Lincoln Park and a few of these new clubhouses. 30% increase in group outings, 30% increase in restaurant sales, and about 15 to 20% in pro shop sales. Could conservatively project about an increase in $250,000 of revenue that would not include any type of, if we decided to get into the wedding business, if we decided to do more of that. Yes, sir.
What's your profit margin on that new revenue?
Profit margin on that would be roughly in the golf shop, 30%, outings, at least about 50%, and then in the restaurant, and that's about, again, about 50% food costs to that, so. Here's a couple pictures from Lincoln Park Golf Course. I just wanted to show you what theirs, this is a rear view from their new clubhouse. That's the front edge view. I couldn't get the guy to move his truck for me. That's their new banquet facility, once again, that hosts 175 right here. One thing that was interesting, I know a lot of people like, is there were a number of big screen TVs throughout the clubhouse used for point of, just PowerPoints like we're doing tonight, business meetings, and then once again, their entry. And then finally, just the overall customer experience, as I mentioned earlier. What would a new clubhouse allow us to do at Kicking Bird? It's a very important aspect to our customers' overall experience. Those of you that have played golf at Kicking Bird, I'm proud to brag on Brad. The golf course is usually in phenomenal shape. We just went through in 2007 the driving range expansion and the addition of lights, which has made our driving range, if not the best, one of the best in the Oklahoma City market. Lake Hefner's still got a pretty good performing driving range over there on the lake. But we truly feel that a new clubhouse at Kicking Bird Golf Club, more than anything, would just help to create Kicking Bird as a destination place and provide our customers with an exceptional customer experience. And that's what we're looking to do.
Can I ask, was any
Absolutely.
thought given to including the tennis clubhouse? and dealing with that?
Absolutely. And early on, there was discussion. I think what you're going to hear a little later is from Craig about a potential opportunity with the Edmond Public Schools, and I want to speak.
She didn't look ahead. But
There
I was
you go,
wondering how-
exactly.
What you
And-
considered as far as this location?
And if that were not to go through, then we could just, you remember that footprint I put on there? There would be no reason why we couldn't expand the clubhouse more towards the tennis center and have a tennis aspect of the clubhouse, because Craig and I have talked about that, the golf section and the tennis section, and have theirs located more towards the tennis facility on that east end. That definitely could happen. We'll
Randy, how
definitely
long would
increase
this
that.
project take?
Excuse me?
How long would the project take?
Almost 2 years. I would tell you that I know that Lincoln Park had budgeted for about 12 to 18 months, and it carried on for 2 years. And it depends upon the weather and that kind of stuff, but it would be about a 2-year project.
And you would be open that time, during that time?
Well, and that's going to be one of the biggest things that we would look at, because as I drew that picture of the clubhouse, could we section some of that off and save it? We have a cart barn that would be pretty much obsolete. Those of you that went to Lincoln Park, they operated out of trailers, and that's what drives some of this cost dollar per square foot up too. That's not just true construction costs, that's some temporary, what are we going to do in the meantime? And we would look at maybe utilizing the cart barn or even part of the clubhouse if we were to expand way to the east, and that would be up to the design team.
Is your parking adequate if you expand?
At this point, we max out. Those of you that have been up to Kicking Bird Golf Club, we would have to expand parking, absolutely.
And where would that go? Towards the tennis courts?
Towards, and this would be all with future development, towards that tennis court area, or as I mentioned, we would look to maybe move this clubhouse a little bit over here. How could we recapture, if we're not gonna do anything with this area here, we could definitely reposition the parking lot and capture many more spaces. We've got 168 spaces right now, and there's many Saturdays we're sometimes playing up to 260, 280 rounds of golf. And then those of you that play tennis, guess what? You'll see tennis players love to park here and walk there. And the only reason I know that is because I get calls at night to come unlock the gate sometimes, because they get locked in. And they're tennis players. Yes, sir.
Do you know how they financed the Lincoln Park improvements?
Revenue bonds.
It was all bond?
Yeah, bonds. And then there was some, and
Did the
I'm sorry.
golf course pitch in some with their?
Absolutely. And what happens is what they do is they take a portion of their green fees and put it back. So each course, where they're kind of unique, they have a trust where all the public golf courses are in together, and they help pay for projects. So Lincoln got built, Early Wine's next, Lake Hefner's third. But like I called today and I was talking to some of the pros, basically it's a shared liability for all those golf courses because they're in one trust, but it is through revenue bonds, and then part of it was financed through their own money that they were able to have in their reserves.
How many rounds of golf did you put in last year?
Last year we played about 43,000 rounds of golf total. Now, and I always use, and the number that I threw up there at 40,000, that's paid rounds of golf. And you say, well, who's playing for free? We've got a lot of schools that come out, they pay us a student fee, like the PGM, $450 a semester, and they can play as much golf as they want. So we still document that round, but that's not in the 40,000 rounds. So about 43,000 rounds of golf per year total, but 40,000 paid.
PGM, is that per student or just their total fee?
Now that's per student,
Okay.
so they're a good
What do you
Yeah.
think it would go up to if you had all these improvements?
You know,
Rough
talking
idea.
to Aaron Christophe, you would see about a 10 to 20% increase in rounds just because it's new. And I mean, I called him today, and he hosted 3 events yesterday, 3 shotgun starts. They hardly ever did 3 shotgun starts. He says, I hope the honeymoon continues. You know, how long can you expect it? That would take some digging into that information. But I would say realistically, because here's the tough thing, is golf is not growing. If anybody reads, you know, some of your publications, is it growing? Not huge, but I can tell you, if you work at it, you can grow it. And that's one of the things with our Snag Junior Golf programs, our EC Hafer Junior Golf programs, we have been able to maintain that. And you've been on the city council for a long time. We've been between 40 and 45,000 rounds of golf annually for a long time. Now, how do we grow? That could be with the clubhouse a little bit.
So that 45,000 or 43,000, how close are you to saturation where it would be uncomfortable to have more people?
Uncomfortable to play?
Right.
If we could get 45,000, we would be great if we would do 45,000 every year, because I think you bring up a very good point. What happens back to the days when I got here in 1992 and Kicking Bird was the only course in town, we were doing 60,000 rounds of golf. Wow. Well, what happens at that point is your golf course condition goes way downhill, and then you're really having to look at redoing your greens a lot sooner than you had to. And so you're hitting on something that is very, very big, and that is what's the delicate balance between not enough, too much, and, you know, the equal amount. And we look at the 45,000 round number, my superintendent would tell you the same thing. Something that is manageable and something, you know, once again, accessible to most people.
Okay, but that's only a $2,000 to $5,000 round improvement. How are you gonna get your 20% revenue increase?
Huh?
How are you gonna get your 20% revenue increase?
Well, basically, what you're gonna be looking at is your fee structure and, you know, basically your outings that you can get, you know, because one of the things that we try to do at Kicking Bird, I can have my green fee structure that everybody pays on a per person basis, but tournaments pay a little bit more, but we also put it into some packaged amount. So we would certainly reevaluate our fee structure, making sure we're still competitive, but to be able to continue to get that growth as well. So that's what we would analyze.
You all were very helpful when we did our wedding outing out there. And, you know, we had a grand time. You know, I've got to say, we had duffers and we had people who could hit the ball and well. And it was a grand experience.
Did you have a good time?
Oh, yeah.
Because,
Very much so.
and that's what.
Except I lost. You know, I had to give it to my brother-in-law the trophy for winning. But, you know.
Well, and that's, and I think that's where we're kind of unique, and I'll be quiet because I know Craig's got a good presentation coming up, but I really appreciate the city council and our city leadership that understands on the weekends, we charge a little bit more than we do on the weekdays. Why? Because that's when we have the demand. So when someone wants to come and book a tournament on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to be playing a higher dollar on our prime time than you are Monday through Thursday. And so back to his question on that was, how are you going to make sure you hit those numbers? We have to really evaluate our pricing structure, which our golf advisory board does every 2 years. I learned the hard way. Don't let it pass, then try to make a big increase, or you'll have city council chambers full of upset customers. If you make smaller, minor adjustments and keep your expenses down, you're able to maintain, you know, that profit margin that you need to be successful.
Do you know what rate you borrow money at on this revenue bonds?
We just refinanced. I might have to go to someone that might know this a little bit better. We just refinanced for 2%, did we not, on the one that we were in 19?
Actually, a little less.
It was a little less than 2%, and we were in at 4%.
Okay.
So, be awesome. But, you know, that's one of those other things.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
You bet. Thank you. I hope I didn't talk too long. Sorry. Okay.
Well, thank you. And if you have some more questions for Brian, he can pop up afterwards. And, you can ask us all at the same time if you'd like. But we have a opportunity. The Edmond Public Schools approached us several months ago about doing a joint tennis facility. Right now, they are kind of restructuring some of their facilities with adding football game fields or competition facilities. And so some of their tennis facilities are going to go away, or they're going to have to spend so much money at each location. So they thought, why not just have one location for a tennis facility for their 3 schools, and approached us about partnering with them. We have a really good relationship with them right now with the Mitch Park YMCA. Of course, that's a three-way partnership. And other programs, we partner with them, and small, maybe not as big as the YMCA, but have a good relationship with them. And so, of course, we were interested in doing that. Right now, we're looking at a commitment of about $6 million. The school district has a commitment of about $7 million. And part of this agreement will, when we structure it all, is that we will operate the facility. The school district will not operate it just like the YMCA. The YMCA operates it, but we will operate the facility. What we're looking at doing is eventually we'd like to have about 24 outdoor courts and 8 indoor courts. Right now at Kicking Bird Tennis Center we have 11 outdoor courts and 3 indoor courts. So it obviously would double that plus some. Part of that 24 outdoor courts would include two championship courts with spectator seating. We would try to have parking for about 300 people. It would also include an operations area for us to operate the facility, which would include some offices, storage, locker rooms, both for the school. They'd have a boys and a girls locker room. The high schools would share. And then, of course, locker rooms for our attendants as well. Those would be separate facilities. Maybe same building, but separate locations. Concessions, right now at Kicking Bird Tennis Center, we have a small concession area. And so we look to do something similar, obviously with some upgrades. And of course, storage. You never have enough storage in your building, so we would need storage, kind of like Brian talked about some of his needs. The tennis center would have the same needs. Shaded seating. We always need that when you're watching your kids or watching other people playing. We need more shaded seating, and if that can be incongruent with the concessions and the eating, it's a great environment to have your beverage or your snacks or whatever in some shaded seating. The school district would need a new facility by spring of 2018, February 2018, pretty much right before their spring season starts. And of course, just like at the Mitch Park YMCA, the school district would have priority. So after school, when their kids come, when their players come, they would have priority on those courts. When they have tournaments, sometimes they have tournaments all day, then they would have priority on those courts. But with 24 outdoor courts and 8 indoor courts, we don't envision that they would need all 24 courts. Definitely for practices, and definitely probably not for tournaments. So that would still leave some courts open that we could use for the public. Some of the locations that they've looked at, and I've done a little bit of research on. University of Tulsa has a nice facility, and some of y'all might be familiar with some of these locations. They have 12 outdoor courts and 6 indoor courts, and they have seating for 2,000. Now, of course, that's a collegiate program. University of Oklahoma which is the second picture, has 12 outdoor courts and 6 indoor courts, and they have seating for 500 on their outside facilities. McKinney, Texas, I was in Texas for 18 years, and so sometimes I tend to look back there and see what they've done. The city of McKinney opened a new facility a few years ago, and it was one of several facilities that won an award for their facility, and they have 11 outdoor courts. And the previous slide, or a couple previous slides, had a picture of their facility. Springfield, Missouri, which is close to my hometown of Branson, they have, which is the slide before. Can you go back to the slide before, Andy? That right there. The bottom, that is Cooper Tennis Facility. It's on the east side of Springfield, kind of along Highway 65 and I-44. But that is, you'll have to jump a couple more there. They have 17 outdoor courts and 12 indoor courts. But that draws in a lot of pro-am tournaments. I know the colleges use it as well. It is definitely a regional location for large-scale events. And as you can see, it seats 2,500. The bottom picture is Arlington, Texas. That's the city of Arlington. And you can see this is their clubhouse. And then back behind it is 19 outdoor courts. City of Southlake has something very similar to Arlington. I didn't include a picture of that, but I think they have 18 outdoor courts. And of course, with the tennis center that we would operate, we would continue to have an emphasis on community programs. We would obviously offer lessons, leagues. We would want to do stuff for adaptive, work with our schools, not just the high schools, but the elementary schools, try to get tennis into those schools. Just like Brian talked about how to drum up new businesses, get the kids involved, obviously families. Anytime that we can have some community type programs, that's what we would want to do. It wouldn't just be for competition, it just wouldn't be for the school district. It just wouldn't be for adult leagues or pro-am events. We want to get kids involved, we want to get families involved. That's what we're about. about in Parks and Recreation, is getting the community involved. Of course, there could be other programs and events. I know a lot of large tennis centers are large enough that they can have concerts, they can have different types of events to bring in more revenue. And of course, tournaments. Through the school district, would have lots of tournaments. Like we mentioned, we could work with the local colleges here to have tournaments. USTA, leagues, obviously. And then, of course, the Secondary Activities Association here in Oklahoma, obviously. That's something the school district envisions, is that they could host a state tournament every year, or if not every year, close to it. So that's the tennis facility.
Can I ask
I'll
a question?
yeah, let's ask a question about tennis, and I'll kind of get into the sports fields.
Yeah, you, on some of these deals, you had the seating, like the real impressive one in Springfield for 2,500. If you're gonna bring in, you know, statewide tennis tournaments and stuff, what do you propose for, on the previous page where you're talking about what you'd like?
I think was there a previous slide that mentioned what the seating they want, the school district?
You were talking about 24 outdoor courts and 8 indoor.
Yeah, well, we have 2 championship courts with spectator seating. They haven't got that far yet, how much seating. The other courts would just, you might have a bench or a small section of bleachers that you could watch there. But the spectator seating could be, you know, 400 or 500 per court. So it just depends on what the budget looks like, what they envision for how many people they would need. But it would be something that we could host, we or they, or together we could host some large type events. Yes?
Oklahoma City is updating Will Rogers and doing all sorts of new courts and indoor courts and things. How would that impact what we think we could draw? Because they've always had the state tournament. Tell me what you project this doing in competition. How would that work?
Well, I think Edmond has a unique ability to draw folks, and it would be a different environment. The school district obviously has been hosted the state swim meet the last 2 years, our new facility. So I think they've got a good reputation that they can run a good program and run a good facility, and we have a good partnership with them that we would want to continue that. So of course it could jump around. It could be in Tulsa, it could be here, it could be Oklahoma City. That wouldn't be up to decide. It'd be the state to decide. But if we're not hosting the state high school tennis tournament, then there's some other, like we mentioned, other tournaments and programs that we could do on a regular basis as well. So, yes, sir.
Where would this be located?
Well, we're trying to identify some land. There's a couple different tracts of land that we have in town that we're identifying. We need it to be centrally located between the 3 high schools, the 3 current high schools. When you talk to the school district about the 4th high school, they've talked about they will build tennis courts at that 4th high school. Now, of course, that could change, obviously. I think they're several years away from really kind of getting details into that 4th high school. But kind of looking at the central part, so wherever there's a couple tracts of land that would be congruent between those 3 high schools. So, yes.
I know that the school district needs for this to move quickly if it's going to happen, this partnership. If it doesn't, the city's not able to come up with their part and the city does their own thing, what kind of tennis facility would you have? Would you do if you're not able to partner with the school district?
If it was just us?
Yeah.
If it's just us, then we would probably make improvements to what we have right now at Kickingbird Tennis Center, which we've made a lot of improvements. I've been here for 3 years, and I think we've probably easily spent over $300,000 on that facility. The indoor facility, resurfacing courts, painting poles, nets, that type of stuff. We would work with, obviously we work together with the golf course and have a joint clubhouse, since we're kind of one department, and we would look at doing that as well. So, and if for some reason the school district had some problems getting this done in time, then they could use Kickingbird Tennis Center. We'd be happy to work with them to rent out courts or something before we can get this done. So if the timing didn't work out, yes.
Now, everybody here probably knows more than I do about the proposed sports center up at Covell.
Right.
Would this fit in with that at all, or would it be totally separate?
No, that doesn't include any tennis facilities. That's soccer, basketball, volleyball. Those are all indoor facilities. It's a private venture with them. We'd obviously work with them anything we can, but that.
Would there be any synergy to working this in with them, or is it too far away from the high school?
Oh, no, I mean, I'm excited about that facility. In our programs and our youth sports associations, we want to work with them because I know that they're going to have to generate some business and some income to pay for that facility, and so they're going to want to use our kids that are playing in our programs and our adults out there, and so if that means they're working with tennis, we'll be happy to discuss anything that we can do. So, do you have a question, sir?
I did. She asked a question about the Oklahoma City Tennis Center. Do you know if they have plans for expansion or indoor courts or anything
I don't
like that, or where that's,
I
They
don't
do.
know.
They do.
They do.
is it
Yeah.
set in stone, official, or is it still
I don't know if
plans?
it's set in stone, but
It's
they,
underway.
yeah.
It is under construction? Okay.
I don't know all the specifics.
So what becomes of Kicking Bird Tennis Center?
Well, that's a good question. We might turn into pickleball courts. No, just kidding.
Thing
Pickleball.
nowadays, yeah.
Pickleball, by the way, is the fastest growing sport in the country. And I'm just going to plug a little bit. We are getting ready to paint pickleball lines at Stevenson Park tennis court.
Oh,
And so we're going to work with Sherry Prince, Judge Prince's wife. She's part of they're changing the name, but part of the Pickleball Association in Oklahoma City. And their little location there, she's got a little store that she's selling some paddles and stuff. And it's really a fun activity. And if you've never had the chance to play, she's going to work through our department, and we're going to offer some small lessons, leagues, just an opportunity to play, kind of some family nights. And we won't turn Kicking Bird Tennis into a pickleball facility.
Are you gonna put lights in Stevenson?
Not at this time. But we've had several discussions. I mean, we've talked about, it'd be great that we'd like to use the indoor facility for some sort of golf, maybe some sort of indoor training facility. That corner's a pretty good prime real estate corner, so there could be an opportunity to sell that to whatever it could be, an on-queue, a hotel, a restaurant. I mean, it could be anything. So it's something that we just have to look into as we go further along.
You wouldn't look at leasing it to someone else to run as a tennis, that would seem to be in direct
I don't think so.
conflict.
I mean, that wouldn't be up to my final decision, but I wouldn't vote for that. So I think we might be better off selling it and using those funds for something else. Yes, sir.
How big of a footprint do you need for the 24 outdoor courts and 8 indoor?
I don't know how many acres. Steve, do you know how many acres that the school district's looking at? Some of the tracts of land, do we know how many acres that we're looking at?
20, somewhere around 20.
Okay. 20 acres. Any other questions about tennis? And if something comes up and you have another question, I'd be happy to answer those as we go. Sports fields. The list that you had lists several sports fields options. And one of the things that we ran into, we did a Parks Master Plan in 2012 when I first started here. And in our ranking, there were 5 different types of sports fields in that ranking that the community expressed an interest. There was a community-wide survey. It was done electronically. It was done in person, mail, phone, all that type of stuff. And it ranged everything from practice fields, soccer fields, multi-use fields, lacrosse fields, and baseball, softball fields. So looking at that, myself and the Parks Board, we just kind of grouped it all together into sports fields. Everyone knows that Edmond's growing. I think the numbers are 2-3% a year. The school district averages almost 500 kids a year. Of course, some of those aren't, quote, Edmond residents, but they're still using our facilities. They come to Edmond to shop, eat, and they come to Edmond to play ball. And so because of that, because of more schools, there's more participation, not just among students and youth, but among adults as well. It's not just families that are moving to Edmond. So we have a growing community. We have a need for new fields, and we have a need for improving what we have. Andy, can you bump back one more? All these pictures, most of these pictures with the sports fields and the tennis, obviously, are complexes that I'm familiar with in other parts of the country that are youth sports complexes. And so when you look at this one on the left, this is Texas Star in Euless. It looks like a small college, but that's a city, part of a city complex. This one here on the right is Mesquite, Texas, where I was before. In most of these cities, and there's some in other locations, not just Texas, but a lot of these locations have award-winning facilities. And the point that I'm going to get across, hopefully, is that when you invest money into these sports fields, that it brings people to town. And so that's one thing I want you all to remember as you go along. You go ahead. Edmond 66 Park is our top priority. As you can see, we finally started playing out here this spring, and then it started raining like crazy. So they haven't got all their games in, and if you go out, make sure you use your bug spray because the mosquitoes are very large. We just put in 4 fields. The plan, though, is to build another 4 fields. We want this to be an 8-field complex. Part of that is, well, with 8 fields, we can be a future ASA site, Amateur Softball Association, which obviously headquarters here in Oklahoma City, for tournaments and overflow needs. There has been discussions about maybe not the College World Series, but sometimes the College World Series, when these teams are in town, they need places to practice. Is there ever an opportunity that they could use our complex for practices? But also just overflow needs, overflow tournaments. Currently, the Edmond Adult Softball Association, who operates Edmond 66 Park, you also still uses Bickham Softball Complex, David Bickham Softball Complex on Midwest. It's an older facility. They need 8 fields for tournaments, and so there's times that they're still going to use Bickham and Edmond 66 Park. Now, their regular league, probably not as much. They can probably play most of their games at Edmond 66 Park. But there's a need for 8 fields for tournaments, to draw in more tournaments, to have a bigger league as they continue to grow. And the last bullet point, this is my top priority when it comes to sports fields. This is the first thing that I need funded, because this would start a chain reaction to repurposing other fields, which is in your slides. Hafer AC Kaplinger Sports Complex, if you're familiar with that, right here off Bryant, and Mitch Parks Field. We're looking for about a $4 million investment. I think everyone that has children has played at Hafer Park. It was built on a landfill, if you're familiar with that. And so we have all sorts of challenges. We'll take any piece of land as a park, floodplains or landfills. But we have some major issues. We have a lot of drainage issues. If you've ever been out there, it just comes from everywhere. Leveling of the fields, obviously needed. There's a process called laser leveling that they come in and level that. If you're familiar with maintaining ball fields, when you drag the infields and you drag it the same way or back the other way, you start creating a lip. And so when you get bad hops, that's what that's from. You're creating a lip. So they all need laser level. Aesthetic upgrades, these are pictures from Hafer on the left, or Kaplinger on the left, I'm sorry, and Mitch Park on the right. They're all in need of aesthetic upgrades, backstops, dugouts. They need to be tournament quality, and not just tournament quality just to bring people in, but they need a higher standard for our community, our kids, our kids that are playing in our leagues, kids from Edmond and surrounding areas. Oh, back one, sorry. At Mitch Park, we're looking at repurposing the fields. Right now at Mitch Park, we have 9 baseball and softball fields, and the association doesn't use all 9 of them. They use some of the outfields for football. So in the fall, they use the outfields for football, and in the spring, some of those fields are using for baseball. Well, obviously, if you know anything about football, it tears up the grass pretty bad. So then they're coming in and trying to maintain those fields and get them to a higher standard. We have field safety issue. The turf quality needs improved. The entrance and exits of dugouts. There's no scoreboards at Mitch Park. Additional landscaping, new safety netting for foul balls. This is at Mitch Park. I had one other point about that. But also, not only are families driving out of town to participate in other tournaments, they're driving to DFW, they're driving to Tulsa, they're driving to Kansas City. We also have kids right here in Edmond that are playing in Deer Creek or playing in Oklahoma City or going to other places because their fields are nicer. We're losing revenue there. We're losing our folks from driving to other locations. So one thing that we've talked about in Mitch Park is how can we repurpose that? How can we be more efficient with what we have and what we need? If you're familiar with that, there's a Miracle Field at Mitch Park. Obviously, we would never touch that. We want to continue to do that. But there's 2 other fields there that aren't used necessarily all the time for baseball. The YMCA uses it some, but we also have a need for football fields. And so we might be able to repurpose what we have at Mitch Park.
I got a question. You got the next thing on here. We'll back up to Mitch. You were talking about
Sure.
the fields off of Santa Fe. It's one of your deals. Have you gotten there yet? Or
No, we're 2 more slides. 2 more slides. So one of the things we want to do, if we have the ability to put 4 more fields out at Edmond 66 Park, then we can repurpose Bickham Softball Complex. Obviously, we have to change the name, but Bickham Sports Complex maybe. So we're estimating about $4 million. One of our greatest needs is rectangular game fields for football and lacrosse. As I just mentioned, football plays on the outfield of baseball fields. Lacrosse currently uses, and I think everyone has seen them, off Kelly and Cobell, that school district property. Some days, the school district might decide to sell that to CVS, and we want to have a place for lacrosse. Lacrosse is the only association that we work with that does not use cities' facilities. And so at some point, we're going to need to address their needs. They don't have lighted fields. And so in the spring, or I'm sorry, in the fall or spring, when they need lights to practice, they're kind of sunk. They don't have anything. They try to work with the Edmond All Sports Association. They try to work with the other groups. They try to work with the school district. But everyone's so packed, it's hard to get them in. And so sometimes they have to delay their season just so there's enough sunlight to have practices. Don't go yet. Synthetic turf. That's something that we would like to look at Bickham Softball Complex, or as we might change it to Bickham Sports Complex. But that's a trend that a lot of cities, a lot of municipalities are going to. Obviously, it's less maintenance. You're not having to mow, fertilize, water. You can use it for multi-purpose. So not only could we use it for lacrosse, we could also use it for football if that's a joint facility. But maybe we can get 4 to 6 fields out there, and so maybe they split it. But there's times that lacrosse is playing and football's not, so they could use those fields as well. So multi-purpose fields is what we look for. If you've been out to Bickham Softball Complex, we need to upgrade the parking lot, and obviously the restroom and concessions. So something that we would envision is just kind of starting with a clean slate and starting all over out there, and having those as game fields for football and lacrosse. But they could also use those for practices, even though that means people are going to drive from North Edmond to East Edmond, which I know some people don't like to do, but that could be something with new fields and turf fields. I think people would be excited about doing that. So sports fields again. These are Mitch Park fields off Santa Fe. And Larry, I had to throw in I found a picture for us. I went to school at University of Missouri, so I had to throw in a picture there. And the picture on the right is from Overland Park, Kansas, which is a multi-use field. It's a soccer field. It's turf. The University of Missouri field, this is, not that we're trying to compete with universities, but I wanted to show you how they repurpose these fields. This is a multi-purpose field. You can tell there's soccer, they play football, they play lacrosse on there. That's their intramural fields. It's kind of in the middle of campus. It's called Stankowski Field. It was a legend in Mizzou. But that turf is from the old football stadium years ago. If you follow college sports, and I'll just throw this out for you, there was a turf at Missouri called the Omni Turf, and it was really, really bad. It would trip up athletes and football players, and people complained. So they gave it to the students and let them use it. But anyway, it's kind of neat. It's a multi-purpose field. There's different lines on there that you can use. And so the point is that we could do something like this. Our fields off Santa Fe, if you've been there, we used to have rugby out there. There was an adult rugby association. They've kind of fallen by the wayside. They're playing some in Oklahoma City. Probably not going to come back, even though there's an open invitation to them. I told them several times, if you start up again, you're welcome to come back. But right now, that's a grass field. There's no irrigation. It's in pretty poor shape. And we have this huge tract of land out there that we're not using. And our leagues are growing, more kids are coming in, and people drive by that field all the time, and it's not being used for sports. And so we need to invest some money there. Obviously, we'd love to have synthetic turf again. Again, we could use multi-purpose fields. We can have different lines. We could use that for lacrosse. The YMCA could use it. We have a great partnership with the YMCA. We would love to do adult sports. We don't have any adult sports programs here in Edmond. And that could be something that we do as a city, or that could be something that we partner with the YMCA on. There's all sorts of leagues we can do. We can do flag football. We can do Ultimate Frisbee League. Has anybody ever played Ultimate Frisbee? A game? Okay. All sorts of different things we can do. We just don't have the field space to do it as a city program. And again, it could be rentable. Those that have kids in athletics and you try to find a space to play and to practice, this is something that we could rent out. We could rent out space. I mean, that would be, it would be prime property. We could set a fee that would be comparable to what other folks are doing, but it's something that we could rent out from time to time. Okay, in summary, I'm going to kind of wrap up for you all. This diagram on the bottom, and hopefully you can see that on your slide, but this is from Dr. John Crompton, who's a professor at Texas A&M. He's kind of well known among our field for talking about repositioning parks and recreation, and talking about the economic benefits of parks and recreation, and not just for tournaments, but also real estate. When your house is next to a park, you market that when you're selling your house. We moved up here from Texas 3 years ago. It was amazing how many houses were listed next to Mitch Park, next to Hafer Park. So it's a real estate thing. But Dr. Crompton talks about that a lot. So the diagram here, I kind of want to show you. I don't know if you can see that on your handout, but it starts with community residents and visitors pay taxes to a city council or to a city, which uses them to subsidize development of recreation programs and facilities that attract out-of-town visitors. And then we're not just trying to attract out-of-town visitors. We want to meet a need of our community. Who spend money in the local economy. Everyone knows that when you travel for any time, not just for a sporting event, but if you travel for a sporting event with your kids, you're staying a night in a hotel that's probably costing you $100 to $150 a night. You're eating. Your child's probably forgot some equipment that he needs. You're having to go to a sporting goods store or something. So you're shopping. Who spend money in the local economy, creating income and jobs in the community for community residents who pay taxes. And so it's a circular approach. So Dr. Crompton talks about that quite a bit. And the last sheet of your handout, I included an executive summary that he produced. And so you can read that on your own. I'm not done. There was a study, and this really hurts me to say this, by the University of Kansas produced a study. As a Mizzou grad, that's our biggest rival, so it's hard for me to give them any acknowledgement. But they produced a study, an economic impact study in 2010 that talked about for every dollar invested in the state of Kansas for recreation, for parks, for sports complexes, for golf courses, $1.70 was spent. For every dollar that was invested, $1.70 was spent. The city of, do we have any Wisconsin people that can pronounce that?
Eau Claire.
I don't know.
It's missing
Okay,
the E.
Eau Claire. They recently won the National Gold Medal Award, which is the highest profile award you can win as a city for Parks and Recreation. They did a study, I think it was in 2012. They had 26 sponsored city events that generated $3.6 million in revenue, and they had surveyed over 800 people. But 26 sponsored events that generated over $3.6 million in revenue. And that was everything from youth sports tournaments, that was concerts, any type of event that we can do that generates that income. So in summary, Parks and Recreation is my passion. I'm more than thrilled to be here in Edmond. I feel like we have tons of potential and we can build upon what we have. When we go out of town, my wife always, when we go to a small town or we like being adventurous. She wants to go check out the cute stores, the antiques. I want to go to the parks and I want to see the ball fields. And I mean, that's just what I live for. I just love looking at that kind of stuff. Sports fields, I've been involved in 2 communities in the past where we had top-notch facilities, not only for our community and our kids, but we drawn in people. It was a huge economic benefit to people to come to town. You see them, they're at Sonic, they're at Walmart, they're at McDonald's, they're at Chick-fil-A. There was a tournament this last weekend at Hafer Park that had over 70 teams. There was also a tournament at Edmond 66 Park with, I don't know how many teams, but there were 16-year-old girls. And so you had all these kids in town. And so if you tried to get out on 2nd Street this weekend, it was really busy because of all these people.
Plus you had the state soccer tournament.
Yeah, soccer tournament as well. So it's a
That's not on
huge
your
boost.
list. Why not?
That's
sorry?
even,
The soccer fields aren't on your list. Why not?
that's a different deal.
That's not something we're looking at
City
improving
Park,
right now.
isn't it?
It's run by Edmond.
Well, it's a city soccer, that's a city facilities, just like Hafer Park and Mitch Park. It's run by association, the soccer association. Do they have needs? Absolutely, they have needs. They would sit here, Paris Sanders would come here and tell you all the different things he would need. But we didn't identify that as one of our top 3 priorities at this time. So, any questions about tennis, sports, Brian, golf, anything? We'll be happy to answer them.
Well, I have kind of an off-the-wall question, because we have Hafer, which is a great park, and a general park, and then we have Mitch, and then we have a bunch of really nice kind of pocket parks like Stevenson. Do we have any plans for a major park east of 35?
I think as Edmond continues to grow, we want to identify any land that we can do out there. That was one of our items on the list, was additional parkland. Was it my top 3 needs? No, not at this time. My top 3 needs were what we talked about. But yes, as Edmond continues to grow, we want to do that. you know, we've had discussions with the school district when they build a new elementary school.
Right.
Is there a tract of land next door that we can purchase? Maybe we can maintain your playground area, the sports. They always have a backstop. Tim works for the school district. Is that something we can maintain and we can have a small neighborhood park next to it? Edmond 66 Park is something that we want to continue to work on. I think we need to see more houses going out that way before we start adding. We need another dog park. We definitely need another splash pad if you've been by the splash pad. But those are things that we need to see more houses going out that way, more rooftops, before we start thinking about more items. Because that's a destination location. It's not a, you know, splash pad's right here in the center of town. The dog park is, I mean, it's south, but it's in the center of town. So yes, absolutely.
And do you have the income off of the sales tax that you already have dedicated to you?
We have a park tax that we get an 1/8 of a cent for sales tax. And so anytime these tournaments come to town and they spend money, and part of that goes back to that budget. And we have anywhere from $1.5 million to $2 million a year, roughly, give or take. And so we can use to update playgrounds. We can use to make major repairs, fence repairs. But we can't build a tennis center, or we can't build a clubhouse, or we can't spend, you know, $15 million on sports fields.
Mitch is just worn out.
Mitch is wore out. I don't think it was designed real well. If your child plays left field or right field, you can't see them out there, and so it just needs a major upgrade. We're not looking to build a new complex. Edmond 66 Park is, but for the kids, I think we can redo what we have. We can get it to a higher quality. It's in great locations. Mitch Park is the place to be right now. But Hafer Park draws a lot of tournaments. It's right in the middle of the town. They can hop out and grab stuff to eat so quick. And we have a lot of potential, and we just want to build upon that. And we feel like with a good chunk of dollars, we can make our system even better.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think Keplinger and Hafer and Mitch is where you need to invest your money right now, because that's where everybody goes.
Right.
And I go to Mitch quite a bit, and it's pretty much worn out. I mean, all the cement around the ballpark's all cracking, and
Yeah.
you're right, if your kid's playing right or left field, you gotta get on the top of the bleachers and stand up to be able to see them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a while that I had to do that.
Yeah.
But those fields over there on Santa Fe, you know, I know we've got that gravel storage place over there.
Gravel storage,
Yeah,
that's what that is.
that could be used for parking, so, I mean, could we do something pretty quick with expanding those fields for maybe the lacrosse people using them? I mean,
Well, that's something we're going to have to look into in the future. We're going to need some lights. If it's not synthetic turf, can we get some irrigation out there and start irrigating those fields?
Right.
But yeah, that's something that's
I know,
definitely.
this first time I've ever
definitely-
heard of, I'm talking about using synthetic turf, and that's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, the city of Overland Park, you saw their picture. A lot of cities are going that route. And I think for us, it's most effective, not just because we want to be, we want to look better than our counterparts, which sometimes you do. You kind of want to look better than your buddies in other cities. But more realistically, they're multi-purpose fields. We can use them for lacrosse. We could use them for football. Soccer can come up and use them. Sometimes soccer does use the fields at Mitch Park
Right.
when they're getting ready for tournaments. We can use them for adult sports. The YMCA can use them. It's just a wide variety that we have needs, and we can use them. Just the wear and tear is a lot easier. So.
But didn't we just buy some land for soccer fields recently, several years ago?
We bought some additional land to build 3 new fields, and then we were able to realign another area and build a 4th field.
And wasn't there supposed to be a championship field, or did that kind of fall away, or?
Well, Field 4 is still the championship field because it's got the big bleachers on either side of it.
Well, there
But
was
they
one that
put
was supposed
one
to be
in
right
the
behind
north.
that, right behind that development there on Kelly. There's supposed to be, one plan they showed, Edmond Soccer Club showed us had a field there with bleachers on it that ran.
One thing
north
we've talked
south.
to soccer about that we're kind of working on in the future is a synthetic turf practice field where they could have a large area to use for practices. So that way they're not tearing up their game fields, which is a huge issue of mine. I'm really big on these are your game fields, you use them for games. These are your practice fields, you use them for practice. Because the wear and tear on those, the quality goes down. But we talked about a large synthetic turf area that they could use for practices. So there's not so many rainouts. There's not a wear and tear on the field. So that's something we're working on in the future. But that would be located on site at their
Right.
complex.
20 years ago, we'd go up to Santa Fe, get our lawnmowers out, and mow out a 40 by 40 section, and we'd hold our kids' practices there.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy Hampton came in and said, we're gonna open up this complex to practices and destroy the complex.
Well, practice space is tough to find, and you see people practicing, and probably some of you all in this room, you see people practicing at churches, schools, people's large backyards. If you have little kids, sometimes that works. And so that's just something we're gonna, as we continue to grow, Edmond and the surrounding area, they, like I said, they come to Edmond to use our services. It's not just Edmond kids.
Right.
We can't tell them no, but we need to provide what we can and work with them on that. Larry, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Just, there are 2 indoor soccer fields that are scheduled for that new indoor sports complex on the northeast
Right.
of I-35.
Yeah. And so that could be
Apparently indoor soccer is kind of a different game.
Yeah, that could be some practice space as well. Any other questions about fields? Yes,
We're not about fields.
or tennis or anything?
But the Smith House out at Route 66
Edmond,
Park.
yes.
What-
Edmond 66 Park.
Yeah. What plans are for that?
It depends who you talk to. Everyone has a different opinion about that house.
That's the $1.6 million question.
I think, in my opinion, and don't hold me to this, in my opinion, we have a need for a large open air space pavilion. We get a lot of calls for, we have a group of 200 or 300, where can we have our school reunion or big church picnic or hopefully not a family reunion that size, but we need something big. I envision a large open area pavilion up on top of that hill, kind of clean up some of that hill, have some not paved trails, but trails that go down there, some hiking trails. So it's my opinion that the house needs to be demolished. To take a residential facility to a commercial facility, to use it as an indoor facility, I think UCO looked at doing that, and it was close to $1 million, just because of all the codes and restrictions. And we have at Bickham, at the park with the pavilion that we converted. Bickham Rutkin, sorry, I got too many things, man. We gutted that. It would be really difficult to gut a 2-story facility to a pavilion. And so you're talking, how stable is it and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of needs that we could use for that hill and really make something really neat. One of the items, and I guess Ed left, one of the items that came up on our master plan, one of the priorities was a nature center, nature area. Now, would it be it's not the nature center like you go to a state park and it's staffed and, kind of large scale, but maybe it's something smaller scale that we could work with the school district on or work with the university on. And so there's something that we could do there too. I know police and fire have needs to have facilities out that part of town, so we'd be happy to work with them on that as well. So there's a lot of potential out there. We just haven't really came up with a design. And things seem to change, and so we probably need to start working on it at some point. Yes?
Looking at your chart up here, it's made me think, how does the business of hosting these tournaments and events, how does that move with the economy? Do we see a big hit, more so than other industries, if we have another recession like we had a few years ago?
When we had, it's a good question. When we had that recession several years ago, I was in Texas, and what we saw was that, yes, people were not going on vacations, but people were staying in town, and they were using our facilities, they were taking our programs, they were playing ball, they were playing games. Maybe there's not as many tournaments, nationwide tournaments, but maybe there's more regional tournaments. We could attract people from Oklahoma, Tulsa, Kansas City, where it's not that far of a drive. Even Tulsa, they could play and go back home and come back, so they're not having to spend the night in a hotel, but they'd still eat, pump gas, and that type of stuff. So I think when there's a recession like that, what I experience is people stay where they are, and they spend money in their town. And so if that means they're coming to our pool or our activities or the YMCA, or we need to start charging them to use the splash pad, I think, if they're going to come to the splash pad. So
Things packed every day.
yes, it has been packed, and I'll give a little pump for that. We're going to extend the hours. We had several people make some comments on Facebook that they wanted the hours extended, but I try to average my goal budget is about 50,000 gallons a day, and our water superintendent told me today, he goes, do you know how many gallons of water you used the other day? You used 48,000 gallons. I said, well, good, that means I had 2,000 to spare, so let's go turn it back on. But we're gonna extend the hours, and next year we're gonna add a restroom facility, we're gonna add more parking, and we're gonna add more shade. In fact, I called our architect today, and I said, we need more shade than what we're considering.
How much does it cost to build it?
That was, the splash pad itself was about $350,000, give or take. And then phase 2 will be more than that. A restroom facility is almost just as much as the splash pad, believe it or not. So, but it's something that is a big hit, and we hope to put in a couple more as we go along. So it's something that we're going to need. So.
Any other questions for Craig?
Yeah, we're close. We're way past your all's time. So.
Thank you.
We'll stick around if you have any questions, and there's more cups if you need to take more home because there'll be a fight over that one. You're welcome to take some. And Brian will stick around too if you have any questions. So, all right, thank you.
Another one.
Our next agenda topic is really, I think, what this group is all about. I know I've gotten comments from some of you that when are we going to start talking about what we want to do? And I think it was important for us to hear about what the city is asking for, but I know that you guys also have, you're the community, and we need to hear that as well. So if you could compile a list, and I don't even want to give you a restriction on how many things that are kind of your bucket list of what you would love to have with the city, since we voted to extend and tax, what we'd like to do with that. So if you could compile a list, as short as you want it to be or as long as you want it to be, and then send it to Andy. And we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks, so we'll be able to keep kind of momentum going. And then we'll dedicate, if it's okay with everybody, the next meeting, unless we have someone scheduled, to talking about what this group is kind of wanting to do. Does that sound okay?
We can, well, we have somebody scheduled.
Is there, who's scheduled on?
We've got Bob Rick scheduled.
Okay.
There aren't as many police projects.
Okay, so maybe we can carve out a short time for that then.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then have the bulk of it with this.
And just like you talked about, we kind of wanted to, show some projects and then kind of show you where we're coming from and then hear from you guys.
Okay.
So if we can't do the whole meeting, we won't do the whole meeting probably that way. The next one, we'll have Bob come in and then a second library. We're going to have the Metro Library talk for a little bit too.
That's for the next meeting.
Maybe the one after that.
That might be the one after that. So, but at least we can start to get a list compiled.
Absolutely.
And then get that in front of people. Absolutely. So the one after that one
Correct.
we'll dedicate to
Correct.
it. But we should be at least thinking about that, because I know I've gotten feedback from this group from various folks that we weren't put together just to kind of put together the list of what the city wants and that be it. We really want the community to also lift up what's important. So, yes, Pete.
We need, I went to a meeting and Mr. Watland and Charles Lamb went to a meeting with the university concerning the Performing Arts Center, and I think they put a great program together. I think we should have somebody from the university here how we cooperate with the university to have Performing Arts Center here in downtown. It only makes sense, and along with that, we definitely need a multi-level parking garage in the downtown area. There's no doubt about that. But I appreciate everybody from the Parks Department and the Police Department and the Fire Department, but I was under the impression it was wanting people to have ideas brought forth that would enhance downtown Edmond, or Edmond, completely.
Yes. No,
and at this point in time, we've been working on city projects, and yet I haven't heard Performance Arts Center come up one time, and I think we should incorporate and see what we can do to get that university with the city of Edmond to put one together.
Yeah, I think we can get everyone's information, and I think that probably will be a project that will come up as being one of great interest, and then maybe we can whittle down what we want some more information about. And but I think you're exactly right, Pete. I mean, some of us, just speaking from my perspective, it was good for me to hear what the city needs, so I can put it in the context of kind of my own wants and needs. So we definitely need to get to that stage. So we'll have the next meeting with police and library, and then after that, we'll be dedicated to looking at what this group's ideas and wants and needs are, and then getting it whittled down as to, if we need to have more of a list put together, but have more of those types of
We can still bring
discussions.
somebody from UCO in on the one after
Oh,
that.
yes. And there might be another project that
Somebody, we want
someone
to
else.
bring somebody else in too.
Yeah.
Once we get the list and go through it.
Right, right.
There
So-
may be other groups we want to bring in.
Mhm.
Maybe along with our list to you, we should say, you know, we want these things in general, but, you know, there's a performing arts deal, and please have someone from UCO make a presentation in the future. How many more meetings do we have? Or potentially?
We meet through on November, right?
We meet
Right.
through,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we got
We're doing
time.
great.
Yeah, plenty of
Yeah,
time.
I think
plenty
we
of
have
time.
plenty of time to give adequate dedication to
Right.
that. So I think having a list and then who you want to listen to would be great.
Do you want to limit the list to things that are not on the list we already have?
I don't want to limit you at all, so you
Okay.
can go ahead and put that on your list of things that we've already discussed.
I
They're
really,
already
really
on
like
the wish list from the city.
Okay, so are we gonna hear from UCO about the Performing Arts Center?
Well, we don't have them scheduled, but if you could just put that down on your list as someone that you'd like to hear from, but if there's something else that we're not discussing that you're also wanting to hear about, please put that down as well, and then we can compile it and discuss it and then schedule that. Who's coordinating that from the UCO side? Do we know who to
I
contact?
can get the person from UCO to just,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you know when you want, I'll be happy to get
Okay.
the appropriate people.
Yeah. Does that sound okay? And so the next meeting agenda would then be police and library.
Correct.
With some discussion or maybe disbursement of the list that we've received so far.
Absolutely, yeah, please send me your ideas and we'll start compiling those, so.
And if you'll just send me a date, I'll start finding the appropriate people who are available on that date.
Okay, absolutely, sure.
Yeah, they have a great presentation already keyed us.
That's
How
great
long does
to
it
hear.
take?
We'll tell them how long it will take.
Thanks for coming and doing the presentation for Parks and Rec
Absolutely.
and Kicking Bird.
Thanks.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks a lot.
I'll tell you when they